Hey guys, this is Stewie from Cloud9.
Okay, this is episode 38 of Counterpoints. Brought to you by Boomeo, where they've got people who do guides. A lot of them are like legends, major winners, so none of us are involved except me. I just get money from it. I'm not involved. If I actually, fair play to Boomeo. The service is that they have people who are really knowledgeable doing guides, so they're not actually hire me to do guides. They just pay me to promote it. So I think that's a better way around for everyone, quite frankly, you know. But they do let some people have a monkey around as well. They let, like, you know, Nothing's allowed to do some videos. I think Adren does content for them. So, you know, they want to do all levels of the game. Like, you know, maybe you want to improve to Gold Nova. If you are, I'll fuck you up when I meet you there. Right, anyway, just playing into the community memes there.
Careful with the monkey jokes, Duncan.
Embracing the memes. Well, I made it about a white person. And we all know white people never came from monkeys, right? Because, I mean, Americans believe in fundamental Christianity. So, usual co-host. Oh, yeah, the other sponsor, esports pools. Play there, lose all your skins. I know a lot of you are mad that you can't lose your skins now as morons on actual, like, normal betting inside the game and the client. So go on this site, lose them all. Oh, no, actually, you don't bet the skins. You just win the skins. It's free to enter. Nah, whatever. Just find a way not to win skins. That's all I'm saying. And if so, do it at esports pools. Right. So, usual co-host. Listen, I make them fresh every time, Moses. This isn't a script, believe it or not. I'm not going on talking points here. You know?
I think we all know you didn't write this out and say, yep, this is the one.
So, usual co-host, Moses, a.k.a. Little Momo. That's becoming a thing now. I'm making that a thing.
You bring it
back?
Know,
a lot of people, I think the reason why, you know, famously people used to actually like be quite harsh to Yanko and be like, oh, resident sleeper, you know, is because he's got such a great mind for the game that he's too specialized, you know, he's too in-depth on the game. And so it really kind of threatened people who aren't that knowledgeable about the game. They felt insecure that they didn't notice the things he noticed, you know. When I comment, you know, obviously I've got the banter going on. I've got the charisma mixed with anti-charisma. And, as a result, you know, people get insecure again, like, oh, I can't make jokes like that, you know, oh, he's talking about my favorite place, so they get mad again, you know. But Moses here, probably the most loved analyst in the entire world, because his secret is he's so relatable, you know. He's not the best at anything. He hasn't got a niche, you know. He's just an everyman, isn't he? He's just a blank cipher for the random pleb in the studio to imagine this is like a choose-your-own-adventure, and they're on the desk as well. He even supports NA, like all they do. He even thinks Cloud9 can win, just like them. That's why you have succeeded, Moses, and I hope you continue to succeed, mate. Make America great again.
Thanks, Duncan. That was a stellar introduction.
Also going off notes again. Yeah, wait a second. The teleprompter's having problems. Right. So the guests for this episode are right. We've got Stuchiu because I didn't know that Chad could do the episode yet. But he's welcome to join the show as well. Now we've got two guests, so two's better than one, as Sadikist and maybe Henry G. I don't know how he feels about that. Feel after parties. So. That's the way I put a caveat in there. I don't want to put anyone in it except Matt. Because I know he's definitely getting put it. So, but as we all know, there's a silver lining to every story, and you are that silver lining, Chad, because you're still on the show. You're still here, mate. So
yeah.
Obviously, former in-game leader of Renegades. That was a lifetime ago, though. Now he's joined us in the world of analysis and commentary, though. I notice you go in the original Moses route where you try and flip between the two and see if you can shit-talk enough people behind the scenes and make duos break up and maybe get in yourself. But if you don't, you're welcome to stay on the analysis desk. Listen, I welcome all traitors, turncoats, and cowards. You know, it's kind of like being on the analysis desk is kind of like when people back in like the 17th century used to run away to sea and join the pirates, you know, and go around the world. Like that's kind of what we do on the analysis desk. Because, yeah, come on.
Yeah. No, I did that play-by-play had to do with the NA minor. I was fucking terrible, so we'll stay with the desk.
I loved it. I thought it was really good.
You like my sound effects, you fuck?
Yeah, the sound effects were solid.
Well, that's because Chad hasn't got a duo yet, has he? I mean, obviously, Moses, you've got a duo in that burgeoning, you know, one day tier 1 duo, I think, the creamy couple, which is also another thing.
Great, yeah, definitely make that a thing. Definitely make that a
thing. There we go. Right. I actually wish that just within that duo, it could be the same duo, you and Pansy, but just get Anders involved, because that's always been my dream cuckold type scenario in the Counter-Strike City. Love all the people involved. Love all the people involved. Right. The episode's underway now. Stuchiu.
Are we sure?
Semi-famous writer of esports. Best game that he writes about is actually StarCraft 2, so obviously writes about that the least, including almost no in-depth articles anymore. Instead, I fully converted him to the idea that what you do is if you have talent, you just degrade yourself and write about the most low-level, everyday topics because you get paid money, and that's how you live with yourself.
Yeah.
But he's got a camera now. He does videos now. He's got his own YouTube channel now. Do you still do videos on that?
When I remember.
Okay, right. Well,
you got a lot of work with this one.
He's really grinding, isn't he, guys? Yeah. Did you always go for your hopes and dreams, Dad? Yeah, well, I can remember. I fucked around with it a little bit, but So anyway, episode 38. Let's see if we can make this one a special 38. Perhaps like the weapon that will be used to kill me one day at an event. Reasonable banter, right? So it's underway now. It's all underway. Oh, by the way, the sad thing about that is that I've not just give someone an in to get an epic moment in history if they do that.
Yeah.
I know. Whatever. To be fair, they're pretty hard to get that weapon, I didn't make the mistake of saying like a Glock or whatever all the homies have. Right, so for episode 38, we're going to talk about the major. But since I actually think most talk shows and most previews for majors is shit, because unfortunately, people want to preview the matches that are going to happen, so it has to be the first round matches or the Swiss system. People spend all their time doing that, especially talk shows. They'll just talk about that element, whereas I always think it's actually better to just work backwards, basically. Like, I'd rather know which teams are going to do really well, who's going to be the best, what are the matchups going to be. So let's just start at the top. We'll go right in there, no holes barred. Jason, who is going to win the major?
Oh, shit. That is quite a question, isn't it? I'm going to go... You know what? I'm going to flip the switch a little bit. I think actually Astralis is going to take it.
Yeah, that's the switch.
Trying to fuck with me, isn't he? But okay. Why?
Well,
Why
no,
is Astralis going to win?
I usually would have said SK, and indeed I think SK, has a great chance at winning it. I think this break off, this Astralis skipping Cologne is going to help them a lot. I think a team like that's going to have time to go over some things, to change some things up. You already saw SK. All the interviews after Cologne was them saying, yeah, we're a bit burnt out. The Swiss system especially, they don't like it. One of the strengths that they have in matchups is their map pool. So the fact that Swiss system helps out with that is great. It can just be like a one map affair. You get a ban a lot. So it kind of brings their map pool down to like the tier 2 level in a way. Like they're still going to be good on pretty much every single map, but other teams get to play their strongest maps as well. So it kind of evens the playing field there a little bit. And I think they'll just come into this and I don't want to say they're going to be sluggish, but I think there is kind of going to be an element of where they are a bit worn out, from the travel, from the events that they do, from doing everything. And Astralis doesn't have that. So I'm looking at those guys to come up with a fresh way to get like someone like Device involved. Interested to see what plans they have up with him with the AWP. Glaive is an in-game leader I have a lot of respect for. And they're one of the teams as well, like SK and like FaZe, where the talent is just, 5 players deep. They have 5 players that they can have different players dominating each game and do it consistently. So that's a very, very good tool to have for them.
Okay, but before we go on, does anyone else in the chat have Astralis winning the major?
No.
Okay, right. Well, let's just talk about Astralis since we opened that box already, right? Why do you think they won't win the major, Chad? Like, just specifically on Astralis, what would the reasons be that would mean they wouldn't?
I think that they're going to come in really strong because of the boot camp that they've had, and they'll have a whole bunch of new strategies and new takes on the game to catch everyone else off guard. I just think the SK, well, that would go into who I think is better than them. But I think that obviously, we've seen them struggle with FaZe. I think they might struggle, well, not struggle, but I think they have very close games with G2.
Okay, but you can say SK, but just say specifically related to Astralis why SK would be the problem,
I think that SK are playing the best brand of Counter-Strike out of any team almost ever at the moment. And the way that they can react on the fly to anything thrown at them, I don't think Astralis would have enough in the tank to be able to outplay them on a consistent basis. Just the level of CS that I've seen from SK, even though there were some games which were really close and they lost matches in that group stage in Cologne, I think the way that they can approach every match, even if it is close or even if they're 7-1 down or some shit, they always can get back in it because their theory side of CS is just so much better than everybody else's. They're leaps and bounds ahead. And the difference with that is I think for the major, they're actually going to play with a game plan. In Cologne, it looked like they didn't have a game plan. They just played to everyone else's they just played around everybody else, how they were approaching the game, and they changed their style for that. So when they have a plan, they're going to be much more scary, in my opinion. And that's why I think it'll be Astralis SK final if we get the good brackets.
Stuchiu, do you have SK winning?
I have SK winning.
Yeah, I did as well, right? In that case, let's just open it up then. So we can still talk about Astralis, but obviously we can talk about SK as well. Right? I will just say that I actually kind of agree with most of the sentiments of what you say there, Chad. Like, first of all, I actually think that the ideal final would be SK Astralis. I think that just seems like on paper it's the best matchup, you know? And also, crucially, because unfortunately FaZe has lost to them like 3 times in a row, it's also still the matchup that holds hype, you know? Like, maybe Astralis can beat them. Maybe they do something different with the map veto. Obviously, it was incredibly close last time they played, you know? So I think that's just a great final in itself. And also just the storyline of like the last champions of the major, and if they played SK now, then they'd be sort of taking the crown from the champion. I think that's always just a great narrative. But I actually also think the one thing that concerns me is, do you remember, Moses, when we were doing the previews going into the E-League major, even though I said Astralis would win it, like I gave all the reasons why I thought they would have map pool and players and the style of play that they had at the time, etc. But if you notice, the one thing I always used to say was that the teams that had the best chance to beat them were these 3 teams. It was SK Gaming, the old lineup before they made the change to Fox, obviously. It was Virtus Pro, and it was NIP. And at the time, by the way, when I said NIP, yeah, even though NIP won Oakland, they weren't in any way like a top 4 team, you know. The reason why I cited those 3 teams is because Astralis, here's the thing, it's not that they choke. I've actually got a different way I frame that now, because in the past they used to choke. They don't choke now. What happens is they're just not the most clutch team. So there's a difference between the two there. Choke is like if you choke, you could choke against anyone. Like you could lose against some much lower level team. At the moment, what happens is Astralis can lose if they play someone who plays either just a little bit better or is just like amazingly clutch under pressure. And unfortunately, like with that last group, you can see there where I picked NIP, always used to be able to do that, had the psychological advantage. Virtus Pro, especially the old Virtus Pro, obviously, you know, they just never went away. So they'd always be there at the end of a game. And then SK at the time had like some of the best team play and were pretty much good on almost every map at one point in time. So the problem is, when I look at the current landscape, I still feel like that holds true for Astralis, actually. I feel like they're a team where if they play like a FaZe or an SK and it's a game that goes to like the 14-14 period of the game, somehow they just manage to lose these games. Like they don't choke. Like it's not like someone makes a shit play and it ruins the whole round, but they do lose those games a lot. Like you go and look at their map losses, so many of their losses are overtime or 16-14s. It's ridiculous. So I feel like there is something, like they just lack a little something there. And meanwhile, for me, SK, dude, I think they might be the best ever in that category. Like Virtus Pro was pretty good. The old SK was pretty good. But and obviously Fnatic was very good when they were super good. But it's like, it just seems like they can't lose when it gets to 14-14 or overtime.
They're probably like a team of most of the players in that team you would want to be put in those situations. Like if you had to come up with a team that has to perform in the clutch down the stretch of a match, I think you look at that SK roster and at least like 3 of those guys you would put in that team to be the one that's always performing there. But I also think one of the strengths that SK has right now is their mid-round calling, which is so very good. And I think when you look at the level Astralis has been at throughout most of this year, I think they're the one team that can kind of challenge SK in terms of like the decisions they make as a team in like mid-round, 4 versus 3, 3 versus 4s, 3v3s, whatever it might be. You know, when there's 45 seconds left on the clock and they have to readjust around the map, I think Astralis is that team. And I don't know, I just get that feeling that they're going to come back with something new that can catch people off guard. And yeah, certainly I think that the dream finals for this tournament is SK Astralis at the moment.
Okay, jump in if you want, Chiu.
Yeah, the problem I have with picking Astralis is if you're picking them to win the finals, you're also picking them against the entire field, and they have a clear weakness, I think, in FaZe. I feel like when I mean that clear weakness is I don't think they have a definitive game plan against Kerrigan, and I guess it goes both ways. So that's a very like iffy matchup for me. So it could just be the case that they run into FaZe in the semifinals and they're immediately knocked out before they ever get to SK. Whereas with SK, like, who's the weakness they have? G2? Well, G2 is much more likely to get knocked out than either Astralis or FaZe. So I'm just if you go on pure percentages, I'm guessing SK. And then the other problem I have with Astralis is, yeah, they don't choke, but if you look at some of their final losses, I feel like man for man, the consistency of somebody like Dupree or Glaive is less than their like counterparts in SK, whereas in SK, like everybody usually shows up in the clutch moments. And if you're assuming this is going to be a close finals, which I think most people will, you're going to get to the last rounds of the match, and the last rounds of the match almost always go to SK.
Yeah.
I think FaZe could be in trouble coming into this one.
They did look great in Cologne, did they?
No, like I think like based off of things they say in interviews and talks that I've had with the players, they don't really like when they play scrims and practice matches and stuff, it's not as, they don't get as much out of it as they do from like an official, even if it's a pro league or ECS official, right? So they don't, it's not that they don't put in as much time as everybody else, because they definitely do. They're just not in that same mind frame of practice as other people. So I think that like, and that kind of hurt them when they were at Cologne. They didn't seem like they ever got going, right? Even when they had to stand up and win matches, sure, they like finally stood up. But until the point, like when we saw them in the semifinal versus SK, I was like, what the fuck's going on? Like, this was meant to be a banger of a semifinal. It was
they
such
didn't show up at all, did they?
No, it was only rain on the second map, and then everybody else started playing to a better level, but it was way too late by that point. So hopefully that mentality thing doesn't come into the major, but it's kind of like a question mark for me right now.
I also think that semi-final was the killer, not just because they'd lost to SK 3 times in a row, but it's the fact that they got shit on Overpass. Like, I actually think SK's Overpass is fairly shaky right now. I think that's exactly where you want to be if you're G2, Astralis, FaZe. This is the map you want to get against them. So the idea that they just shit all over you on that map, like, that was supposed to be one of the maps where FaZe was like, right, well, we've got Overpass taken care of. You know, we're pretty good on train, right? That's how you like building your map pool out. So if you can get beat by them on Overpass, that's almost like, at this point in time, they can beat you on any map, mate. Like, just mentally, they've got so much of an edge on you. And now they're even beating you on the maps you were good on. Like, if you remember, Overpass was the one that they were shitting on SK at ECS. That was the positive, you know. That was the one where they thought they were going to win the series. So I feel like there is a huge... Like, here's the thing. You can't put it all on the psychological element. I do think there is a psychological element for FaZe, but I also think, like, stylistically, FaZe just has massive problems against SK. Like, I've noticed whenever FaZe have those good T-halves, they just play like super loose Counter-Strike. Like, they just go really slow, and then it's like, right, Rain, you do something. Like, oh, Nico, where do you want to push it this part in the round, you know? And then the key difference is, okay, unlike someone like a Cloud9 who might try to do the same thing, obviously Cloud9's problem is they don't have the in-game leader. They don't have anyone to bring that together or to, like, switch up what they're doing. So FaZe is like, they really are just like what you might naively think the narrative is, like a super-powered mixed team. So, yeah, the fucking players are bangers, and for sure they can win all these games, but... That's the problem. I feel like when you're in those like tight situations in a game, you either want to have the Astralis approach where you have like the in-game leader who can read the game and go, right, well, this isn't working, let's go to this site now. Or you want to have like the SK approach, which is have like really good players, but who have like some pretty good team play between them, you know, like so you can win the 2-on-2 or whatever. I feel like FaZe is like stuck in the middle ground. So they have the firepower to kill anyone, but how did they win the tournament? You know, I think it's tough to make that work a lot.
That's always been the discussion about this FaZe roster, though, is that looser style with the amount of skill that they have. Like, you kind of have to play it a little bit looser since you have so many players who can be that dynamic. And obviously you need to let them do what they're going to do. But yeah, those kinds of teams always have ups and downs. Like, if you're going to play a little bit more lucid, a little bit more skill based, like their placements at tournaments are going to go up for a while and then down and then up, and they're just going to go back and forth as kind of the players do that, as kind of like your big stars and impact players go. And if you'll notice as well, down the stretch in games, no matter how skill based you are, everyone gets more passive, right? Like if you're in an overtime game, the pace on both teams just slows right the fuck down, unless it's like some kind of, you know, uppercut rush kind of call. But everyone sits a little bit farther back. No one, like, everyone's fine to accept the fact that you're going to get executed upon in like a situation like a 5-on-3 at the bomb site, but no one wants to be the player or the team to make that critical mistake that just gives up a round. So when you do get closer, if you are in like an overtime game, if it is like 14-14, that naturally just takes away some of that looser style out of FaZe, unless there's like a player who's like just been feeling it in that match and he just goes out. But I think FaZe is, I don't see them beating Astralis in this event, so that kind of doesn't really worry me so much, that matchup, because even in some of the past series, I like even with the wins that FaZe has had over Astralis in series, would you guys honestly go into a series at the major and say FaZe is going to beat Astralis? Because I still don't think I would.
I think it's close still. Like to me, the only element that I put, like, here's the thing. I actually think if you took out all mental components of the game, I think it's pretty even between those two teams. I think it's fantastic games. You know, different maps each time. Yeah. They play back and forth on each other. No one's going to 2-0 anyone in theory. But the problem is, I will say, I think FaZe have like a slight mental edge on Astralis. It does feel like Astralis, for some weird reason, have decided that they kind of get the edge on them. I'm not sure why, but they just have. I think. Yeah, the thing is, though, what makes this major crazy is that there is an outside chance, though, that like any of these teams we're talking about now can all win the major for sure, because the bracket will decide almost everything about the tournament. Like imagine, like what Stuchiu was saying there. I agree, right? If SK got to the quarterfinals, but their first round matchup was G2, then SK might not even fucking be making the final of the AG now. Meanwhile, if it's G2 that makes it, well, now if you FaZe, you're like, great, let me meet G2 in the final. You know, like there's it's one of those bizarre scenarios where I think the top three, it really is very dependent on who meets who when. That's why it's always been a problem to me when teams come second at a major and they're like, we're second best in the world. It's like, no, you're not. Like, I don't think that's how that works. So.
Just to touch on that FaZe playstyle a little bit more as well, I think like the way that Karrigan calls against Astralis seemed different to the way they played against SK, because watching that game, that one specifically, they were definitely playing like pussies. They was so I think they were so scared of what Fur could do to them with aggression, or what they had seen from Fur with aggression only in that event, that they tried to not play to their strengths. And you already touched on it, right? They need to play loose. They need to let their stars get into it. So if they haven't like rectified that mentally before the event, and they think, oh, we need more strats or more structure, they're gonna have a rough time, because they can run into any like site and just fucking headshot everybody and then drop back on the executes and the default later once your stars are already active. If you wait until round 7 of the game after you've already lost 2 gun rounds, you're fucked.
And that carried on to the second map, right? That carried on into Cash as well. Like it was only Rain who kind of flipped that switch. That was the insane part. Is like, where was Nico? Where was Alu? Where was Keo, who's been so huge for this team? So, I mean, if you want to look at Astralis and say some of their like, you know, second tier impact players in that team, or like, you know, the guys you would expect to have some kind of like step up, like a Dupree or like a Glaive, like Stuchiu mentioned. You look at this FaZe team and those same names are guys like Kiyoshima and Alu, who just like were not present in that series whatsoever. And think of how good FaZe was when they had like Keo was like one of the main fraggers on this team when they were winning like Star Ladder. He had an insane tournament and he did great in what it was, Katowice as well when they made it to the finals. I mean, Nico obviously helped out at that tournament, but you need someone like Alu had like the reputation of being like, you know, maybe he's map specific, maybe on like a map like Inferno, that's like his map that he singles out to just go nuts on. But you didn't see any of that from either of those guys, from the Alu, from the Kiyoshima. So I mean, if you're going to go down to the second tier and you're not going to get production from those two guys, then certainly Rain, Nico need to show up in a massive way.
Yeah, I will say it's kind of worrying if you think about it, because when they played SK in the last finals, like you can think about it as their current loss to SK is like a continuation of how they lost at last finals, where like they had nothing going on that T side of Train, and basically it was just like heroic plays from Nico and Alu, and like everybody else was missing. Like maybe it's just a mental edge, like a mental problem specifically against SK, because you know like Fur's a problem, but then like even if you somehow got past Fur, there's like Coldzera back there, and you somehow got past Coldzera, and like the big rounds maybe Fallen shows up. So it's always like there's always like a mental like problem playing against SK, because it really does feels like there's no point in the round where they've truly lost. Like there's a chance they can make a comeback somewhere.
I don't know how anyone could recover from that ECS file if I was FaZe as well, because like forget the third map where they did get to the championship point and all that guff. Like, dude, if you play that game out and you're FaZe, you're like, we 2-0 this so many times, you know, like they smashed the first map. Mirage was the one that was like super close, you know, and that's actually one of the reasons also, if you want to expand out and don't just say as a vague comment, you know, SK is super clutch, because people might not know what that means. So another reason why I think that's really huge to have at this major is because the two maps that everyone contests right now are Mirage and Inferno. Everyone will play these two maps. And if you notice those maps, because they're the most even balanced, in my opinion, like they're the maps that you really can like 8-7 each half if you're playing two amazing teams. they're the maps where you get to the late rounds so often in them. Like, think about Mirage. Every fucking time the top 3 teams play Mirage, it's like 16-14, it's like overtime. So on those mountains, those are exactly the maps you want to have like the clutch players on, because that's where people are going to tighten up when it gets to like the 30th round. And then if you have the guys, like Cold Zero just never gets phased in those scenarios. If you have that guy, you're not going to win them all, but fucking hell, you're going to win a lot of them. And I mean, in theory, you shouldn't even win that many as you do, because obviously clutch is like, no one can clutch every time. You know, there is an element of luck involved, but it's just if you have that, if your team has that mentality and you have players who can do that often, you are going to get an inordinate amount of wins that might look like, oh, you were so lucky, but it's like, it's not luck at this point, is it?
Yeah. Plus, the like style is nuts. Like, watching how patient they are with the bomb timer. There's no one else who plays like that in the whole game. Like, they don't give a fuck. They're like, oh, sure, we'll go into the bomb site last second and defuse with no issues. You know, they make the other teams panic because they don't do anything for such, or they're so slow and methodical in their approach. It's like, it would be so frustrating to play against.
I think actually the biggest strength that SK has coming into this tournament at the moment is Fur, and yeah, that seems kind of like an obvious thing to say, but I think like one thing that makes him so dangerous is he seems to have brought back that like JW style where like you can do like the crazy aggression early on in the rounds and just cause so much panic in the other team and cause so much like miscommunication and just like fear of like what he can do. And it's like the way teams used to play against Fnatic when JW was doing that kind of stuff, and when he was able to get away with it with the AWP, was just so cautious, and he was able to buy them so much time and create so much space for other plays to be made for his team. And the fact that Fur's doing it, yeah, it's with a rifle, but everyone kind of thought the ability to do that was just like gone, right? Like once JW wasn't able to do it, no one else kind of ever stepped up to the plate. So the fact that Fur's doing it now is like craziness, and I think teams don't really know what to do against it. And I mean, I'm not even entirely sure there's a good response to that, right? You just have to never get caught off guard, which is a very difficult thing to do against him.
Well, I mean, the key thing there is at least you can say for Fur, probably eventually he'll cool off and he won't just be this god. Like the only person that didn't work on basically was Cold Zero, where everyone was like, well, it's all right, just chill out. In a few months, you won't be doing that. Well, fuck. We need a real plan for this. This is actually, we can't wait for this. It's never going to happen. So I will say that, I do think Fur's style's a lot harder to maintain because it's just so aggressive, so unpredictable, you know. Like, and eventually, I actually think sooner or later, if I'm at FaZe or Astralis, I do literally have tactics that are solely created on CT side for Fur. Like, I have setups where you do, you know, like, for example, if you were playing against Guardian on Mirage and he's on CT side, you might literally waste just doing, like, blind triple nade onto the window, because you want to just say, if he goes there, then he gets hit, and if not, he has to at least think about going there, right? That might not be worth it versus a lot of other players. Maybe they go there half the time and you've wasted some of your utility. I'd start doing shit like that for Fur, because some of the spots he goes to, he even does that, like, ridiculous thing where you just go to the same spot each round. It's not like you mix it up and you go right back to that same spot and kill 2 guys again. So, like,
surely
at that point
he won't
in time,
be here again.
Yeah, the one benefit though of it is because his style is so aggressive like that, in theory you could, with stacks and utility, counter it to some degree, whereas like the Cold Zero style you can't really counter because he does something different each time, you know.
Yeah, but it is insane to see how much success Fur has, like, because teams run defaults, right? And the point of a default is to not get punished by that kind of aggression. You have everything covered, you're watching everything, and you're just like, we're just going to sit back. If he wants to get aggressive, he's going to walk right into our crosshairs, and then he's already got you beat. So yeah, it might not keep up, but like, it is crazy at this level of play how teams haven't been able to, even with default setups, like, able to at least neutralize his impact, right? Like, he still is like a force. You
see why that is though, right? Is because they play SK. Everybody in SK knows if he's super aggressive, he's always their mentality, and this is from the horse's mouth, is he's always going to get one. He's always going to get one, and then with the information he gives us, the rest of us know how to react perfectly to punish them even more. So like, it's like, fuck them. But we are sucking a lot of Brazilian cock right now. Like, we are gagging. All of our eyes are watering. We're having a great.
Listen, mate, when you meet an alpha, that's the effect it has on all the beaters, you know. Again, almost went close to some of them Moses, but I didn't. I pulled back. Alpha human. Yeah. So, no, the sick thing is, though, like, this is one of those examples, right, of where I'll say something that morons will think is totally stupid, but there's like a logic to it. It's just, obviously, it's purely theoretical, which is like, whenever I'm playing against SK, I almost wish you could just tell your players, like, if 2 people run out of mid on Inferno, and one of them's Taco and one of them's Fur, don't kill Taco. Just leave Taco to do it. Aim only on Fur, because if you kill him, we might win the round. If you spray into Taco, Fur is going to kill you while you're killing Taco. So, like, that is not a good trade. Like, the problem with that is you can't can't actually do that. No one can play Counter-Strike like that. But that almost is the logic of what you need to do, you know. It's like, actually, what's funny is in the NBA, they really do defensive schemes like that, you know. Like, you purposely, sort of leave a guy almost open so that when they pass to him, you wanted him to get the ball anyway. You just can't do it in Counter-Strike, unfortunately, because it is just like, that moment's like a 1v1 in the moment play. You can't think macro style like that about the game.
You used to be able to. Remember back at 1.6 when you could choose your own skin? There was always that one motherfucker who picked like the Arctic Warfare skin. You're like, all right, I'm gonna kill him at every fight. I know that's K-Sharp. I'm gonna kill him first. I'm gonna leave Bullseye to do whatever he wants. We're all good. Yeah. But yeah, a little unfortunate.
That's also, by the way, to wrap this up, to just bring that into a neater point, by the way, there's another good reason as to why SK will probably win this major. Like, this is the only team in the world where every tournament, 2 dudes in the same team are competing for MVP of the whole tournament.
Yeah.
Like, Fur and Coldzera are like, I'm going to get the MVP. Joke's on you, I'm going to get there first. Like, well, fuck you, I'm going to get... Like, you know that whole logic people used to use? Like, well, there's only so many kills in a team. How can Fiflaren get kills as well? It's like, mate, Fur and Coldzera put up MVP numbers in the same team, on the same fucking T half. Like, that is actually bonkers, isn't it?
Yeah, it's fucking mad. Insane. Well, you know, as Chad put it, let's get off the Brazilian dick. Let's move on to Danish dick.
So here's the thing, though. I actually think that's actually a key element as well. Is that
dick size.
One of the reasons why I think Astralis, absolutely, the first reason why they have a chance to win this tournament is I think they're actually the most likely team to make it to the top 4 no matter what. Like, they're the team where, yeah, listen, everyone has a ridiculous matchup. Like, yeah, if they drew SK in the first round, maybe they won't make top 4, but they're the team where, like, it's only really FaZe and SK you have to worry about once you get to the best of 3 series. Like, I feel like they've got an answer for everyone else. Whereas everyone else has, like, weird matchups. Like, dude, I'd like to see if FaZe got drawn against, like, let me think, who could they have? I think they have a bunch of underdog teams that could maybe win against them. Like, I think if you put FaZe against G2 in a full best of 3, I know they thrashed them at ECS, but I feel like that could still go differently.
I reckon Fnatic could beat them on like in a best of 3 if they got some.
Possibly, I think they've got the style to. Certainly, they're both just it's going to be like a DM, isn't it? So
yeah, and I know like Fnatic are grinding like really hard with their style to like actually present modern day Counter-Strike. And from the matches they lost in Cologne, I had it up a second ago. Where the fuck is it? This is from Cologne, right? Okay, sure.
Fnatic was good, I thought, yeah.
Yeah, but then they lost to FaZe 16-12. They got stomped out by SK, but like the stuff that they were doing looked more promising than what I've seen from them in a long time. So
you've been saying that for a while though now.
Yeah,
it's kind of rough.
Yeah.
Here's the thing, though. For me, the only tournament I've seen since they got this lineup back together, right? Obviously, discount the first tournament, the DreamHack Vegas one, because that was like hardly any time's notice, and they were just shit at that tournament. You know, they obviously turned up, they weren't prepared in any sense. But for every tournament from Katowice on, I actually thought at all of them they played decently, if not at times good in maps. Like, I actually thought in all those, that's the reason why they were always going right on the bubble or in tiebreakers and shit. The only one I thought they played badly at was ECS. That was the one where they turned up and they were just shit and got schooled and picked all the wrong maps and thought fucking Train was their new map and stuff. But all these other tournaments, including at ESL Cologne, I think they've been the example of the team that goes out in the group stage every time, who for sure would have been potential like impact if they made the playoffs. You know the example of where there's the team that in a best of 3 could do something, but they just don't get out of the group stage. And because obviously you get vice versa every time. You get the team that gets out in the famously it used to be Gambit, who gets out of the group stage every time, but then never does shit in the best of 3. So I kind of agree. I think if Fnatic could make the playoffs, I think they would be scary. It's just if they have the right style for whatever opponent they play. Like, dude, if they play G2 or FaZe, those are fire matchups in my opinion. That'll be really interesting.
Those are like boxing matches, right? Those are like the high skill, just like back and forth, like a little bit less on the tactic side where it's just like...
Cloud9, there's another one. If they play Cloud9 the best of 3, I think that would also be a great matchup. Obviously it's actually possible now at this point in time.
I think Mouse Sports would be interesting. I think Mouse Sports has a lot of firepower on that team. Like sneakily, they just all of a sudden got all these players peaking at the right moment. They have Rops, like a young talent. And on top of that, I mean, they look like they're playing well as a team. So when you put all that skill in, Oscar's been incredible recently. Like all of a sudden, Mouse Sports is a team that like came out of nowhere to have an immense amount of skill on their squad.
I think they're also, by the way, along with Fnatic, they're probably even more ridiculous. It's like because the thing is, you do usually get out of the group stages, but they're the team that every group stage looks really good. And then almost every time they made the playoffs, they got like SK Gaming twice in best of 3s. So like, cheers. So I'm trying to learn like Rops is literally like, I'm trying to literally learn how to play professional Counter-Strike. Do I have to play the best team in the whole game? That's like starting a fucking game of Mario. And you're like trying to figure out how to jump and hit the boxes. And then they're like, right, let's just skip you to the end of the game where you're fighting Cooper, the boss. You're like, well, I haven't played the rest of the game. They're like, no, you have to beat the boss to get to level 2 of the game. Like, oh, sound reasonable. So...
You know what I just feel bad about with Fnatic, to be quite honest, is like the amount of times that they've just gotten fucked by like someone like. If SK doesn't get upset by like space soldiers in the first round, they probably don't have to play Fnatic for getting out of the group. And if you're Fnatic, you've just got to be like, fucking hell, why do I keep having to do this? Like G2 beating SK as well. I mean, it's just like,
remember EPL? Oh, so all we need is like Envious not to just for no reason beat the fucking top teams in the group. Oh, they have. Well, that's now a tiebreaker.
That's great.
What's that? Tiebreakers are in a totally different format than any of us practice in our professional Counter-Strike careers. Well, that's reasonable. Let's just play this out then. No one's going to feel bitter about losing in a format that no one uses, right? Whose idea was that, right? Whose idea? And that's like being like, you know when people joke like, haha, overtime should just be a knife round 1v1, like, it almost is at this point in time, some of these rules, you know, like, no one's practicing for that. How can you, you know?
That's the most atrocious tie-breaking rule set I've ever seen in my whole life.
It's one of the worst, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. It's terrible.
Well, no, the worst was obviously round difference, but beyond that, yeah, I would agree, it's pretty bad. It's
in the CGS, we did pistol round, and you had one round that was a side you finished the half on.
Yeah.
Fucking
yeah, so if you end a half on T-sided nuke, that must have been fun. You're just like, oh, great.
Finished T-sided Tuscan versus 50's team and fucking
But, as we all know, you've got to find the silver linings in life. I'm just going to keep going with that, right? So, the silver lining of that, Chad... Yeah, the silver lining in that, or sometimes people steal away your silver linings, and then you feel like, I've got nothing now. I've worked so hard. I don't even get a consolation out of this. So anyway, after that brief pit stop, let's just go ahead. And here's the silver lining of that, though, Chad, is that if you did fuck up and you looked like shit in the CGS, it's like, here's something a lot of people don't know, Moses. You'll back me up on this. So one of the reasons why in the early days of Counter-Strike, there was like 2 waves of early pros in Counter-Strike. There was people who played in 2000 and part of 2001. And then some of them were on top teams. And then what happened is Counter-Strike 1.3 came out and you never saw any of those players again. They all quickly died off. And the reason why is because Counter-Strike 1.3 was the version where when you died, you could see from your teammates' POV. Before that, you saw from third person. So there was a bunch of players who actually turned out were fucking garbage at the game. We just didn't know because you could never see their POV. So as long as they got kills sometimes, you thought, oh, he's decent enough. But the problem is if you see from a guy's POV, you really see if he's making like big mistakes and if he didn't understand what he saw and information. So in that sense, Chad, in the CGS, at least people never could see your POV, right? It was all third person. So you didn't ever have to worry about that. That's how people thought Mo was good.
Still bribed my way to where I am now, though. So we did good.
Yeah, you made it here, though. That's all that matters. Yeah.
Cheers.
Exactly. Okay, so no, I actually do feel like Mouse is like a. Here's the problem. I won't go out on a limb and say something ridiculous like they're secretly top 6, just no one knows yet. But what I will say is this. I just still haven't seen them play proper best of 3s because they've always had these sick teams they've been drawing. So I just don't know yet. Maybe they're just only good in best of 1. That could be. I'll put that out there as a possible caveat. But the problem is when I see them in best of 1s, first of all, Oscar is just consistent all day long, every game. And then secondly, their map pool is actually fucking good. Dude, they can play like 5-6 maps or something ridiculous for an underdog team. So I feel like give them a normal team in a fucking best of 3. Like, give them North or Fnatic or Cloud9. And then I actually think that's where I can't promise they'll do it because I can't, you can never really know until someone does. But I feel like they're the team who should be able to make like the big jump up, And then maybe they'd be at like the G2 level where we're talking about like, ooh, can they be a dark horse for the event and all that jazz? What do you think of Mouse Sports? Anyone?
I already said I like them a lot. I like a lot of the skill. One thing I do want to find out about this team is I want to have like a chat with their coach. LMBT.
He's downstairs right now.
Well, yeah, I know. I saw him earlier, but like I want to have like an actual like figure out because like remember when he came into this team and he took it over was like right at the end of like Nico's reign and at the drop off, and I just want to know like how much of an impact. Maybe talk to some of their players and like see how valuable that they think he is to them because I'm just very intrigued like the constant story of all these coaches that have these teams that are on upswings now. How much credit gets given to the coach, right? Like did he have any kind of input in how these guys play, who's playing where, what role they are, how they interact together, like what work has he done to make this team better and how much of an impact does it have? So because I mean, you know, we always talk about like Zeus and obviously his work with Team Liquid and how they've looked better. The Starix thing for a long time with Navi, how good he made them. But are there other coaches that are having equally as big of an impact that we just don't know about it? And I mean, I think this jump up from Mouse Sports after Nico left, obviously it helps that Oscar came back in and is going ham. Obviously helps that Chris J is done much better individually, and the progression of Lowell is nice. Dennis's upswing, but like how much of it is going to be given to the coach?
Look, you have to get stuck into a discussion about what different coaches bring into teams in that case. Like with this guy, you know, he used to coach like Hellraisers and shit. In 1.6, he was playing within the Ukrainian scene. He's been like an in-game leader for the entirety of his career. And now he has a bunch of players who don't have any option but to respect him. They have to teach Chris J how to be a proper in-game leader. In my mind, this guy is the one who, from my chats with him, he's watching all the demos, he's getting all the information and stuff, and he's giving the guys the game plan. And he's giving them the tools to start a game strong, right? And that's the same kind of thing. And I didn't really want to get stuck into a Penta conversation, but I think that's the same thing with Penta to a lesser degree in the sense of they've got old mate fucking
Tommy's brother.
Nasu.
Yeah, Nasu. And he's been playing long enough that he can set up the first 7 to 8 rounds of their T halves just to go gangbusters because nobody has any counter strats or idea what they're going to do, and they can just run that game plan, right? Mouse Sports has like the Oscar clutch factor to when they do get in a shithole, he pulls them out of it. Like we saw in Train, they were like 7-1 down. He won 2 clutches back to back, like 2 2v1s were just sick. And then they get
Inferno against Cloud9.
Yeah, so like I think like definitely the coach is playing a huge role because Chris J, even though he's like a pretty seasoned player, he's not going to be able to do all this stuff on his own. And I think LMBT is probably one of the coaches doing the most. He's not just a cheerleader like we see in other teams, which is definitely needed. I know some teams need that because they're emotionally fucked. But I think that this guy is like a legit, all across the board, good coach.
That is the problem, though, that Mouse does have. The obvious glaring weakness is no proper in-game leader. I mean, I also think, by the way, it's a good shout for Penta. It's a similar scenario. They really are. Like, people used to joke that Mouse is the poor man's FaZe. Well, in that case, Penta is the poor man's Mouse Sports. Like, it's the same shit on a slightly lower level. But the problem it has is all these teams have, like, good players, and they have proven, actually, that concept definitely works. It's not even debatable now. Like, if in your country there just aren't that many good players, it's actually worth giving up the fucking comms and the culture just to get better players, and you have a shot at it, especially in CSGO. Like, I actually, that's the one area I would say that it doesn't work universally. It's not that people in 1.6 were idiots. I don't think it would have worked as well in 1.6. I don't think you could have had these, like, 4 nationalities in one team. I think that would be stretching it way too much, especially because it's only in CSGO where you have, like, the mad funding that you could just fly all these people everywhere and have fucking boot camps all the time. And also, here's a weird aspect that I think is interesting as well. I think that ping actually doesn't matter as much in CSGO. So I think it actually doesn't matter also to have players from different countries. Whereas in the past, mate, go and ask anyone who used to play against fucking Danes and Swedes in 1.6. They were better than you, but then they also had like half your ping all day long. And their half of a ping was they had 8 ping. And you had 16. Now, 16 is amazing compared to 30, but the difference between 30 and 16 is like half as much, not in terms of literal number, obviously, but it's half as much in terms of feeling in the game of 8 to 16. Like there's a difference between those two in 1.6. So I feel like in CSGO that hasn't mattered as much. So, thing is, though, for Mouse Sports, when you've got that many inexperienced players, all you really can think is just like, let's hope we get the legend spot. I think that's about the best you can hope for. You can't really expect them to go into the playoffs and play any good team and just beat them and go to the semi-finals of the tournament. That's probably unrealistic. I mean, even here's the key thing for them as well. Even their star player Oscar hasn't been at these majors. So even he's not kind of like proven that aspect. And unfortunately, that's one of the reasons why I love that we have majors, because it is true. You look in CS history, and everyone in general gets a little bit worse at the majors. Except for Cold Zero, basically. Everyone gets slightly worse. Even like fucking Kenny S and Shocks, even their numbers go down when they go to the major,
Yeah, and I think that's an all right goal, though, right? Is like get out of the groups, get into the legend spot, and then like we already kind of touched on, this is just kind of rehashing, I guess, is just hope you get a good matchup, right? Like if you do get a matchup that's surmountable, like if you get an SK, if you get like a FaZe or an Astralis, you're probably fucked. But if you do get one of the other ones, if you do get an easier matchup, then you have a chance to really, really show something, which would be quite cool with a team like Mouse Sports, I think.
Here's an interesting way to do a preview.
Yeah.
So these 3 teams, I'm going to take Na'Vi, I'm going to take North, I'm going to take Cloud9. I hope all three of these teams fail to make the playoffs so that they're all forced to make the roster move that could actually make them a good team. That's the reason why. It's not even dislike.
Mate.
Like some of those teams, I like. I hope they all fail because it will actually probably be the thing that makes them improve,
We all had a good chuckle over the fact that Cloud9 obviously did really good at Cologne. NIP made it out of groups, so they have the positive stuff. So it's like all of a sudden these teams will be thinking like, all right, everything's going in the right direction. We have made all the right decisions.
Are you ready to drop the bomb?
Whoa. Yeah.
Here it is.
Okay.
Are you ready, Moses?
I'm always ready, baby. Wait, let me get my instant coffee over here.
He needs to sit down. He needs to have his coffee ready. He needs to,
That's
get comfortable. Get comfortable, Moses. This is going to be, this one's going to hurt a little bit. There's going to be some shrapnel. There's not going to be any warning like when Yanko was a boy and he had to run to the shelters. This one's just going to come straight in. It's going to be collateral damage. People's feelings are going to get hurt. There's going to be resentment. There's going to be tweets. There's going to be comments on Reddit. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Here we go, Moses. You ready? Are you prepared, mate? Still wasn't that impressed by Cloud9's ESL Cologne run.
Why do you think that would trigger me?
Because it's not you that you're going
like, what the fuck? All that build up for that piece of shit comment?
It's not you that's going to get triggered, Moses. Let's be real here.
You are getting really fucking shit in your old age.
You don't realize, Moses. You don't realize, Moses. It doesn't matter if you're triggered. If you now don't just defend Cloud9 to the death, you will now get abuse. You hadn't thought of that, had you? You hadn't thought of that. All the NA fans will give you abuse now. They will. Right? He's actually challenging NA fans to abuse him at this point in time.
He's saying a little bit. I can do it.
Okay. Here's the question for you, Chad. Are you ready?
Yeah.
You ready? Which good teams did Cloud9 beat in Cologne?
So let's not worry about where they play.
Okay. Right. Let's go. Okay, I'm ready. Let's not worry about where they play. Right. I'm with you. Let's go. Let's strap in.
I think, like, from a gameplay standpoint, you obviously have Skadoodle, who has been playing a lot better ever since the North American minor. That guy's actually been looking clutch, and my biggest thing is I think he's actually playing the current day version of CS. Whereas before, I think he was just trying to hold his lines and hit his shots. Now you can see he's actually moving around, doing a lot more active things, even good with rifles. The Shroud one was an anomaly. I can't answer you on that one. I don't know what the fuck happened.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to try and say, like, that can happen again. It's great to see it happen, but hey, who knows if that's going to happen again. But the way that they're approaching the game as a team, they finally got to the point where they don't just have to rely on one guy pushing through a smoke and grabbing 3 frag. They actually had, went for map territory. They played a better brand of CS. And I don't know if that'll continue through here. If they do it in the major, that'd be fantastic. If not, then hey, it was just a literal one-off that they just had a good tournament at. And I don't think, obviously their run was good because they made it to the final. Sure,
yes.
But whether they'll be a better team in the long run is still to be seen, right? But I think from what I saw, there is potential. But
yeah, I mean,
but I
don't think you can logically say that the Cloud9 we saw at Cologne is going to be the Cloud9 we see moving forward. Obviously, the upswing in individual performances out of Shroud, and even Skadoodle to a certain degree, even though he's had what I think 3 good events in a row for him individually now, is something where you still have to look at that and say that's not going to continue necessarily. Like there's still question marks there, but. One of the criticisms that I've had for them for a long time is they could only go fast-paced. And when they started out this tournament, this entirety of Cologne, it seemed like they were using Cologne as a way to get experience in big tournaments playing slower pace because that was all they were doing.
ECS as well, by the way.
They were slower paced?
Yeah. Especially on Mirage T-Side, that's all they did. They did it like face style. They just walk up,
Yeah, it was cool. It was cool to see them put rounds on the board, and it was really good to see them get some wins. And that's the thing. Once they can feel comfortable doing the slow style, and then once Stewie starts incorporating into his calling more of the right opportunities for the fast pace. You can't always read when it's going to be perfect, but when you're mixing things up, that's where you can become a dangerous team. And then the big question mark is always going to come from no one's going to have confidence in this team until we see Shroud put together, a good, impactful individual performance at a tournament, 3-4 tournaments in a row. Maybe it's over 2 months where people will start saying, okay, now we can kind of rely on this a little bit. But they obviously have put together a way. It's good progress to be made is that they can go slow now because now you can see they can kind of put together a full game plan. They're not just limited by fast tactics on the T side.
Okay, that's okay. You've all nailed exactly the reason why I criticize Cloud9 in this case, though. Is purely because of the placings. It's in the context of the placings. I'm definitely not saying that they're not better. Well, they clearly are.
Yeah.
Like, actually, they figured some things out. My problem is the reason why I think they still need a roster change, and which, unfortunately, if they have a good result at the major, I don't think will happen, is purely because I still think they need the in-game leader. Like, if you look at what they do at the moment, they are the team where if they get to like 13 or 14 rounds against the European team, I'll bet my house that they lose this game. You know, like they're the team where they can't do like the adaptation, and especially on CT side, they don't understand the concept that like, yeah, there's no tactics usually on CT side. You're very basic setups, but they don't have someone who can make like the call to change a setup. They just seem to do it themselves. Like, oh, I'm going to go here this round. Okay, cool. Like, how does that win us the round though? You know, there's no logic of like, oh, well, I need you two guys to go here because they're probably going to push up early at the apartments on Mirage, you know, and then I'm going to push mid as a result to pin. No, there's nothing like that. That doesn't exist in their team. So at the moment, what you're seeing is what happens when all of them play, first of all, close to the peak of their current level, and the style. I agree, they've changed up the style a lot more, and that's way better. Like, it's actually better, this slow play style they're doing. That works a lot more. You see a lot of teams doing that, and that's actually probably the current meta. If you're not a really tactical team, is play that way instead. But yeah, that's the problem I have, is that when we, I don't think we ever did say this, because obviously Cloud9 was going out in group stages, we never used to focus on them. But let's say 2 episodes ago, one of us had said, well, you know, Cloud9 with this lineup is never going to make the final of a big tournament. If you then said like, aha, look, but they did, it's like, well, yeah, when we say that, right, that's a quick comment. We can't break down every comment into every example. So no one meant, oh, Cloud9, if they played against and beat fucking Tai Lu, Immortals, Mouse, and then got Nip in the first round, and then got Na'Vi in the semi-finals, couldn't make a fight. No one was saying that. The point is, in a normal tournament, you're probably going to meet SK or G2 or FaZe at some point in the semi-finals, or whatever it might be. I mean, in fact, you could also go ahead and say Na'Vi did him a huge fucking favor beating G2. That would have been a fire match, right? Yeah. G2 against Cloud9, that's pretty similar styles. Like, I'd love to see that matchup. That if they could put it this way, that's it. That's also why I actually feel bad for Cloud9, because at ECS, they just won the 2 best of ones. Now, it's not like they can purposely choose to lose a best of 1 to play a best of 3 to show me that they're better than they are. You have to try and win the 2 best of 1s, but then you play FaZe, one of the best teams in the world, and get fucked. So then you go to this tournament, right? In this tournament, you could have been playing G2, a team that won a big tournament, a lot of people praise, but they got upset. So you can only beat the team that's in front of you, and then you play the best team in the world, a hardest team in the world to beat. So I don't blame Cloud9. They haven't had any option to show us more than they have at the moment. But the problem is, even based on what we've seen now, I think the limit for these guys is make the Legends spot. And I'm not sure that's going to happen. I think they're the touch and go team that, like, I don't know if they'll get out of Swiss system. I think it really depends on the opponents they get.
Stuchiu, what did you think of Cloud9 at Cologne?
All right. Basically, I had this system where I just like subjectively rate each player at each tournament.
Come on.
At this tournament, Nothing and Shroud had better games than the last 6 tournaments at international lands combined.
Okay.
So basically, you're putting way too much. Like, if you think Cloud9's gonna like reproduce even like a modicum of that, like that's too much of a gamble for me. I don't believe it. And I actually
modicum.
Yeah, I actually don't. I do not believe in this team at all. Like, yeah, at their best they can maybe do it, but their best was 1 out of 7 tries. Like, I'm not having them making it to Legends. Like, that's it. It's like, no way. And I hope they don't make it for their own sake.
So teams who you definitely like. Actually, can we run with that? Can we get these teams out of the way?
Okay, let me ask you this, Sponge, because you defended them okay, right? Okay. So let me ask you this question. I mean, genuinely, and by the way, if you totally disagree, obviously, go ahead and say so. But do you disagree with the sentiment, though, that it would actually probably be better for them to fail, as in it would force improvement? Like, or do you think that they actually, with this lineup, no, just stick with this lineup, there is potential, you can do more with it, and that they are kind of like on a trajectory where it's still going at some point? And maybe not this tournament, but in the future.
I think Stewie being so young and with the in-game leader thing, it's good and bad at the same time, because he can build into like a completely all-round player, like a Fallen or some shit, if he continues and has a good support network and has automatic helping him. The team as a whole, I think, let's add JKS in there. Let's get my boy in that team, and they might they might be able to go somewhere, right?
Pretty good.
He had a nice hack-filled game last night.
Mate, fuck your liquid cunt, eh? See you later. But like, I think that obviously they need the roster change to get them to a consistency level, right? Like the Stitch is saying, like Nothing and Shroud, they don't normally have great tournaments. They had much better tournaments here. But you need a player who can be more consistent with that to compete at this level in the world, right? So
I mean, even if it's not an in-game leader, like, let's say that is too tough to get. Just put in another player, like you're saying, JKS, put in fucking Rosh, dude, there's a bunch of players could go in this team, and let's say the style works as it does at the moment, and the players are playing well. Then adding in another good player who could fill something you haven't got right now, make you even better at that style, right?
Yeah. I think like Justin could I don't want to go into why I think he'd be good in the team. I just think that like
wait a minute.
Justin,
you are suggesting Just 9N, who that's how Shaka calls him.
Name is
Right,
Justin.
okay, fair enough.
No.
You almost just had a
I know. I was like, is this real life? What is this?
No, not that guy.
I don't want to go into why Justin would be the perfect player for Cloud9 and probably be the MVP of all future tournaments. Why not though, Chad?
We all ruling out, just so we don't even have to talk about them, we're all ruling out Big, Flip, Vega, and Penta.
I'm going to say this, okay? I don't know if anyone else here, who likes narratives? Who likes really cool stories and underdog battles and, teams like, working their way up from the bottom? Because, I fucking hate them. And I despise people who dream big. So I'll just go ahead and say, not only do I hate people who dream big, but I hate people who dream of big, such as Big. So I actually think Big is a perfect example of a team where this is going to sound so harsh, but I would have to say, first things first, congratulations. Great job making the absolute best out of that lineup you could, because you have done that. You have now hit the absolute ceiling for this team. You have got the absolute best out of that team. You've got everyone in the team playing as effectively as they could relative to who they are, and that's it. I don't know how you can get any better. And what are you getting once you've done that? You've maximized everything in the team. Something very few teams ever do, by the way, get vaguely close to their maximum potential. You've done that, and what is the result? You could, maybe, possibly on the right map, beat, a top 6 team, 16-14, if it all went... come on, mate. What's that? I get it that that's cool from where you came from, but, yeah, that's not going to do anything at a fucking major. Come on.
If I could play in a team and make... I don't know how much money they're making, but if I could play in a team and make 10,000 euros a month, fuck yeah. Let's do that. I don't give a fuck. I'll be top 20. I don't want to be
dreaming
number one.
big.
Yeah, dreaming big.
I mean, basically just his career all over again, but with the 10k a month. That's the key part.
Money,
yeah. I want to stress the 10k a month part of that. Yeah.
The issue with Big, and they seem they're actually a pretty fun team to watch. If you in the sense that if you're really into theoretical Counter-Strike and the idea of the old school elitist style of Counter-Strike where it's this is CS how it should be played. Big is fun to watch, but my worry with them is that it's always for me with them it's always who's next to Tabson, because Tabson's pretty consistent, but you have Nex and you have Kiev that are supposed to be those guys, and actually oddly enough the guy who I see stepping up more often into that second spot is Gabi.
Yeah, I was going to say.
And how often are you going to be able to rely on him to be the guy bailing you out of trouble? We've seen the majority of his CS:GO, and yeah, I know he was a banger in 1.6, but the majority of his CS:GO career, he hasn't been at this level. So just another individual upswing, it feels, where at some point and this is nothing against Gabi, it's just at some point, the consistency is with him not being able to produce that much, especially when you're going to get against the better tiered competition at the major. That's going to be a big question.
By the way, I totally agree. I actually enjoy watching Big play. Here's the thing though. Watching Big play at the major will be like my experience watching LDLC play at the minor, which is I watched all these halves against practically every team, except the game they had on training against Big, actually, ironically. Every other game, right? Every T half, it would be wow, interesting smoke to get into the site there. The way they flashed off that one guy, they obviously knew someone was going to play there. They got all these bomb plants, but then they lost every clutch. They couldn't win any of the games. That pretty much mattered, basically. And so, actually, even though it's fun to watch, it's fun to watch it unfold and go, God, there's a logic to this, it's pretty good. It's ultimately the least satisfying match to watch as a whole, though, because it's constantly someone getting into what for other teams would be a winning situation, but for them isn't. If you're getting into a situation where every 2v2 afterplant on Inferno is you're the one with the 30% chance of winning the game, that's fucking garbage to watch, that's job done. Now you're the ones who are supposed to win the fucking round. That's what Big is going to be like, I feel, unfortunately, at the major. And you've got to add in, dude, if you're saying there, which I agree totally, that it's basically a lack of secondary firepower beyond Tabson, dude, think about, this is the part no one's thinking about. As I've mentioned, each level of competition is a step up, both in terms of your ability who you play against, but also how much it puts pressure on you. And so we all know the majors is where people who aren't really sick tend to break even more, right? Even when he was in the good Mouse Sports lineups, Nex used to always shit the bed at the majors. He is literally one of the most underwhelming major players I've ever seen in my life. Like if you put him in that tier 2 tournament, he's not like great anymore, but he used to be an absolute banger. He used to be so fucking good. Everyone who's played with him said in practice, he's the guy who just like fucking headshots everyone, and you're like, wow, this is working really great. But he's the guy where he even admitted it. He said something like on big stage matches, he got nervous. And unfortunately for people like that, I always say, I mean, this is another thing I've said it many times, but I think it holds true. That is the most difficult problem to have in the whole game. If someone actually just has a problem with their style of play, maybe they can improve that. Maybe you can put them with the right player or the right team. If someone just is too young, they can get more experience. If someone's not super skilled, maybe they could play a different role and be effective. If someone has mental problems that mean they cannot perform to the level that they are potentially capable of, right? No human in the world can solve that problem. Like, there's a reason why you are fucking sportsmen. Like, dude, Andy Murray's been in something like 8 finals of Grand Slams and he only won 3 of them or something, Like, there's a reason why even the best players in the world can have these problems, So no one big's solving that problem. They just have to, fingers crossed, let's hope that Nex does it this time,
Little blue pills can help performance issues.
Yeah, I need some of them.
They can also clear up problems that you have. Oh, performance issues. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. So, see, always looking for that silver lining, right?
Bring it
anyway,
in.
so I believe this, by the way, Moses, this episode's going to be called The Silver Linings Playbook. I think it's got to be right. Bad. It's got to be called that, right? Yeah, not bad.
So, I've got a couple good ones. I've got a couple good ones already written down. So
fair enough.
We'll figure it out at the end of the show.
Oh no, it's got to be called The Silver Linings Driver's Manual or something like that, or Deed of Ownership or something. That's kind of just reasonable. Listen,
drive
it's all
it
jokes
like
now.
You stole it. Yeah,
Listen,
no, they're free to go.
The baby's back now. I'm sure people are making loads of jokes about babies that got kidnapped and then came back safe. Why not? It's back now. I think you're muted, by the way, Chad.
No, I'm just...
No? Okay, just reactions, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
These are those effects he's got.
You guys have to live with these people. I just get to make the jokes. Yeah, and then I always wait until there's like 2 months before I'm going to the LAN again, so they forget about it by then. They don't hold the resentment against me or anything.
This is my life now, Duncan. I
know it is.
I don't have hope anymore. This is me.
Okay.
Oh,
so, okay, Chad's original statement was, are we just writing off Big, Vega? Was it Flipside, yeah?
Yeah, and Penta.
Yeah.
Right, here's the thing. Of those teams, I agree with the first 3, but I actually feel like Penta's the one that has a chance for upsets. I don't think they're going to... Listen, they're not going to get Legend status, but I think they're the ones that could have some upsets because they're one of the teams that people are going to be the least prepared for. Yeah. They're actually not that bad. They're actually half decent, They've got a decent map pool. Sunny's actually a pretty good player. I feel like they could be the team that does like the... all they do is they just do the one upset against someone else to ruin that guy's tournament and then don't go through themselves,
I think they're an easy team to... when they start on the T side, you can fuck them up early. If you just have some well prepared CT aggression, you destroy them because on every map they go into it with a really, I like to use the term gimmicky, but it's like they just have one gun round that they use and then they can use that to fake or they run it again before you've had time to adjust. And that's where they get off to their big leads, especially while I was watching that EU qualifier. Like,
on certain maps as well. Certain maps as well, they get stuck into like 4-1 setups, or they just have like a big like group ball of death, right? Like some of like the old meta that we used to see. It's just kind of like we'll have 4 guys on this side of the map and 1 guy who will lurk after they hit. And at the minor and at the qualifier, you get away with it, but tier 1 teams are going to chew that the fuck apart, certainly. But yeah, they're a team that certainly I think can cause some upsets in the right circumstances, in the right situation, but probably not getting out of groups. Yeah.
And by the way, Flipside is literally just like we don't even need to talk about them because everything we just said about Big is also applies to Flipside. Except for instead of Tabson, you've got Electronic, and then that's it. Like they've got the same problem. Yeah,
he'll get out of there soon. You wait.
That's also the reason why Na'Vi needs to... Dude, if you want the dream, here, let's go further than that. What you need to happen is, if all of Gambit, Na'Vi, and Flipside don't make it out of the groups, I guarantee you the CIS scene will be a fucking powerhouse at the end of this year. I guarantee you there's at least one team coming out of that shuffle that's a fucking banger. Because I feel like all 3 teams, it's like they've almost done some mad scenario where you've like... divided up all the same types into the wrong teams. You've got all the potential star players in fucking Na'Vi. You've got all the like like second and third star type people in Gambit, and then a good in-game leader. And then in flip side, you've got like a good in-game leader for lower level players, but then he's only got one talent really, and the rest of them are just like a bunch of like whatever, so if you took like basically take those players and make them the supports, mix up those 3 teams. I'm not even joking. You could make minimum 2 lineups, minimum, right?
Yeah.
It's not even an exaggeration.
Could even get Angel from fucking
Hellraisers.
Hellraisers in there.
Yep.
Bunch of good players in there too. So,
speaking of second teams from the same region, Immortals are at their first major right now. How are we feeling about those guys? They actually had to battle to get in. I didn't think they were going to do it for a while. Is there? I'm wondering if any of that like inability to get to a major will actually apply to the major itself, or have they gotten over that hump? Like are they going to be able to actually show up here? Because they can be a dangerous team if they have all the right pieces clicking, if they're all playing well together.
The funny thing is, Immortals actually is the most traditionally Brazilian team I've ever seen in CSGO. Like, SK, this version and the old version play nothing like the 1.6 Brazilian teams play, because they actually play like very tactical, and they play very slow. Well, actually, the slow part was a little bit similar.
Immortals is just emotionally an emotional snowball, isn't it?
Well, that's what used to happen. Famously, this is one of the areas where people got out of control with that fucking term momentum in casting, because actually the Brazilian teams were the ultimate momentum teams, just in terms of they either did that, like snowballed you and just ran off like 7 rounds in a row where they're coming in like really quick and people are just like, it's like a very loose style of play. Like you have a basic tactic, but then how you get to that point is like pretty loose, it's like people just rushing in. That's like what Immortals is like. So as a result, I think it's a good style for upsets. I think it can work against a bunch of teams.
I will say though, like, I think your opinion of momentum in Counter-Strike and a player's opinion of it is so different, because there is, and Chad, you could probably, there is like this, I don't know if momentum is the right word, but it is like when you like have the confidence that like everything is going your way.
Psychological phenomenon.
Yeah, but is that not momentum? Does that not count as momentum?
Well, the problem with that concept is momentum is actually like a physical term that relates to like a force of how things work. Where
all right, we're going to bust out the dictionaries.
No, the point. This is a very key element that I'm making here, because the whole point of momentum is that you actually have built up to like a certain. I'm not a physics professor, so I can't tell you exactly. But the concept is like you've built up to a certain speed and whatever with a force behind it. Therefore, it will continue onwards, regardless, even if you put in the same force behind it or something like that. It would continue for a while because it's built up this momentum. That's the key point I'm making when I say about momentum. Yes, it exists as a psychological concept, but the reason why it isn't as useful if you're not the player, so you can't really know if they've got the momentum, is because say you say it as a caster, like, right, well, they've got the momentum now, they've just got to go into this round with the same mindset. Yeah, but the problem with that is, let's say you have the momentum against Astralis, but then in the middle of that round that we don't know, after the round, Clave says, right, well, they keep hitting like short on Mirage, so what we're going to do is have like a guy push the connector and like nade it immediately, and then we're going to flash out from short and push out. And then you've basically just done the pure counter to what they're doing, and you've actually just, like, in that scenario, it's not easier for them to win the round because they won the rounds before. What happens is they feel as confident, and everything's going great, but the reason it isn't momentum is because actually you can entirely decide whether they win that round or not in some scenarios. So I realize that might sound like I'm quibbling over small aspects, but I think fans really believe that shit, They really believe that it's like you're fucking like it's Dragon Ball Z and you can't go to your like finishing move immediately. You have to power up slowly and like, come in. It's like, that doesn't exist. That's something out of movies, like there's no fucking like you don't have to like, you made me bleed. I will get you for this. Like there's no powering up process involved.
I think.
Anyway, you've triggered me now, Moses. I brought it up, but you've triggered me. I've self-triggered myself.
He's got into the Dragon Ball Z effects. He's definitely out of it.
As soon as I start reaching for Dragon Ball Z, an absolute fucking trash weeaboo show, then you know that already it's gone deep at this point in time.
From a player perspective,
Dragon Ball Z's like fucking tantric sex for retards. Like, who would want to watch that? It takes forever. It takes like 800 hours for a fight to happen. It's garbage. Who's enjoying that? Anyway, sorry, Chad, I interrupt you there. Come on, mate. Bring it back in.
I was just saying that I think Immortals for me, in terms of the way that they approach the game, is when they get fired up and they're yelling and stuff, it kind of... There's not all the players. Maybe it'll just be maybe 2 of them or maybe 3 of them at most are all feeling that high, right? And you kind of get this weird thing where all of the duels you take and all of the timings you pick are perfect, right? And it's just, that is weird. That shouldn't happen. But that's what I think the best part about being a fired up team is. Because when I used to jump up like a fucking gorilla and yell and scream like a fucking idiot, that's when I
Careful where you go with this analogy. Careful where you go with
the monkeys.
Yes, I know it was you that was the gorilla in the snap. I know. I'm saying just keep it in bounds. Chad, listen, I know the path that you're going down right now.
So, like, when I used to do that and the rest of the team would, like, rally behind me, I felt like my calls were really good. And when one thing worked, I, like, knew exactly where to go with it and stuff. It didn't happen very often. But, yeah, sure, there was a couple of games where that was the case. The problem with Immortals is, like, if they start slow and they don't get fired up like that, I don't know if they have the gear, like, to get into a game because they have too many flashy players, right? They have too many flashy players that rely on, the chaos of rounds being set up in that way that they can take advantage of. I think that's when, like, a player like Boltz, even Steel has been playing a lot better in recent times. It has to be the backbone because Henny can miss AWP shots for days. This KNG guy, we still haven't seen enough of him. When he plays his best Counter-Strike, it's when he gets away with dumb shit, like going yard and making it into connector on train somehow, in like a 4v5, like where they were down the man and making it behind and like flanking people and getting like 4 kills. Like stuff like that, it shouldn't happen. It's just like happens occasionally.
Well, and that's also though why I would say that's why I think they're a good upset team is because like when that shit works, like they shouldn't. So that's why you can beat someone on that round with it. But that's also why they're a terrible team to pick to make it deep in this tournament. Because like think about it, those are the two players that in theory you want to go off for them. You want Henny to go off and you want KNG to go off.
Yep.
But they both have such a ridiculously like variable playing style and they don't even have very much consistency in like actually their skill set, you know? Sometimes they hit the craziest shot and then they miss the next one right after it's easy, you know? That as a result, that's got to be the most fucking shaky double AWP setup in the universe right now. That's like a double AWP setup that might not hold any angle or get any kills. Like, that's the most expensive 0 kills you can get in the game, except for, like, I don't know, let's just insert any joke at that point. Nip, a month ago, whatever. Anyway, keep going.
Here's a question for the field, and I don't want this to actually become a discussion. Let's just do a quick little question that we can move on again.
That's one of those things that Anders used to run a segment like that. Questions for the field. Not you, Dolly. Shut your mouth, you whore. Anyway, keep going. Listen, it didn't used to be illegal in Denmark, as Anders has told me on 10 occasions, 8 of them while drunk.
Yep. Yeah.
And then here's the best thing. So a lot of people might not know this, right? But Anders has told us all many times that sex with animals used to be legal in Denmark, and he used to tell us this. But here's the key thing. I think it was still
recently as well.
Yes. So this is the key element. So I was telling someone that story while Anders was there, like, don't get him onto that topic. You know, in his country, sex with animals is illegal. And he turns to me and he says in like a really almost exasperated, like naive manner, he goes, "It's not anymore. They made it illegal." And I'm like, why are you saying that like it's something weird? What the fuck is wrong with you? Yeah, it should be illegal, you daft cunt. What are you talking about? Anyway.
It got made illegal in 2015, so good times. But my
Due
question
to the horrific abuses of one Anders B. Lume, a resident of like. Anyway, I didn't say Anders Bloom. I said Anders B. Lume. That's his pen name. Anders B. Lume. Those narratives he weaves. Anyway, keep going.
Who has Virtus Pro making legend status?
No way.
You know what? I actually think they'll do it.
I don't have them.
I think they will do it.
We can't see Duncan's hands either. So
my hands up.
Well,
come on, Stuchiu, you start first since you think they won't do it.
What?
Did you say that they won't do it?
Yeah, I don't think they'll do it.
Okay, then you start first. Tell us why they won't do it.
Basically, Snacks has been way too inconsistent. Apparently he took over the in-game leadership role or something. Like. Yeah. Basically, the entire driving force behind that team. The first condition you have to have is Snacks is there, and he hasn't been there for a long time. The second condition is you have to have like some kind of something, and they don't have much of anything right now. This is like the worst slump we've ever seen from Virtus Pro.
Yeah.
And the final thing, I guess, the nail in the coffin for me is the fact that this major is not GSL format. So there's no best of threes here to save them. And so we're going to the best of ones, and that's where they famously like lose. Okay. And like I don't think this team as a whole has ever really like fixed, like they have a wide map pool, but they generally like just keep going to their opponent's best maps, and that's never been fixed, and I don't think could be fixed here either.
Okay,
that
let
is
me
probably
tag
the
on that
scariest
then.
part. Yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
maybe you were going to say the same thing then, because that's actually the one big concern I have. So I guess in a way, in that case, I guess I should say they won't make Legend Stakes. So I guess it's cheating to say that, since to me an obvious problem of what they're doing is what they could avoid, then they'll make it. Because I guess if they don't think it's a problem, then they'll keep doing it, right? As we've seen with all the Cloud9 issues over the years. So that is one thing. Like when I saw them get banged out at Cologne, dude, first of all, they didn't play shit teams there. They got like a pretty rough draw the whole time. Secondly, they constantly gave their opponent, like, if not the best, like a near best map for the opponent, while picking like in the middle of their own map pool, which is like so bizarre because think about when Virtus Pro was really confident. They used to do that, like here's the thing, they used to give the opponent a strong map when they were so good themselves, it's like they wanted to like break them psychologically or something mad like that. But at this point in time, some of those vetoes, they could have literally gone to like a weak map for the opponent that would be good for them. So I just looked at that and I was like, that almost doesn't even count. Like I really did think that they could have gotten out just by the map veto alone, almost, you know.
It is kind of funny that they don't.
But I agree that is like cheating almost to say like, well, if they just don't do their obvious mistake, they'll win. Like I guess you can't say that, can you?
Yeah, but it is just funny to me because they've been doing that for such a long time. They've been doing it even when they've won. Is like they don't just want to beat the team. They do not just want to win the game. They want to actually decimate you on your best
it's the Bane shit. It's like their punishment must be more severe.
It is kind of unreal that they do that. Yeah.
I was wondering which should break first, your map pool or ES Forces Alliance of all the teams in Europe. Just an inside joke for all the people who are going to get killed soon with a special thing.
This is a new feature we have in the show, Chad. We've introduced it a couple weeks back. Every single episode, Duncan makes an ES Force joke in the attempts to see where's the line drawn. Where will they finally kill? Do you know what the game's called?
It's called Russian Roulette, mate. There we go.
I want to get high.
Eventually, there's going to be a bullet in that chamber. Don't worry.
I want some of the map.
I don't want to go too deep into Virtus Pro because I feel like that story behind them has been like done to shit. I think Stuchiu brought up the best point though is where it's like previously in some of their slumps, Snacks has been like the only one performing, right? Okay. You've at least always had Snacks. Now they don't even have that. So
right, here we go. I'll give you a reason. That's not a cheat get out reason like my one there. Like I guess my one before really was theoretically they could get out. Like first of all, I totally agree with Stuchiu. I think they're actually in a slump that is incomparable with any of the past ones. Yep. They were in a slump in the past compared to potentially being the best team in the world. It's like when NiP used to have all those problems in 2015. If you notice, and when I used to bang on them and say they weren't that good, I always said because they're a team that has the pieces to be number one. So that's the relative. But the difference was NiP not being good in 2015 meant like, oh, every now and then we might not come top 4. Like that's the context we're talking about now. Obviously NiP this year was terrible. And then obviously Virtus Pro now is beyond anything bad we've seen. But even with that said, here's one reason why they could get out. Right. Here are some of the teams in this tournament. Flipside Tactics, Vega Squadron, Penta, Immortals, Big. You're going to need to beat 3 of these teams. Gambit. You're going to need to beat 3 of these teams.
They start with Vega.
And they've got the free win instantly. By the way, that's one of the things I also hate about the system.
Nothing for Virtus Pro is a free win at the moment.
No, but it should be, in theory.
Yeah, in theory.
Vega is as free as it gets. Like
exactly. And you look at but the thing is, it's still, I was just looking at the maps, it still leads completely to what you're saying, right? Like, these guys they played shit teams, but Vega, like, their map pool is going to be very similar to the one of Virtus Pro. Like, they're not going to get them on, like, their shittest map, which is Overpass. It'll probably end up, like, on a Mirage or something like that they don't mind. So it's going to be a struggle regardless. But if they want to make it, that's where it starts off. And I think from the very little I've seen at show matches around the world is a lot of strategy coming out of VP. If they can actually learn how to integrate that with shooting people in the head, their strategy
isn't that the sickest part, though?
They've got half of this. They've got half of the solution.
Isn't that the sickest element, though? Right? Is that it's not that they're not trying. Right?
They're trying fucking hard.
Not only in that show match, but also in the if you remember in the relegation matches for Pro League. Dude, they were actually pulling out shit that, like, if that thing of, like, we're saving tactics for the major, dude, they were using tactics in online relegation matches that were brand new smokes, then, like, triple smokes to burst out of the fucking apartments on Inferno, a map that no one's figured out. Like, if you actually thought you could make it deep in the tournament, you might save some of those, actually. You might say, right, well, I'll wait till I play phased before I use that one, you know. They were using that, and they weren't even winning those games. So that's the depressing part for me is, dude, they still actually innovate and put it and do a bunch of good shit. It's like, it doesn't work though. Yeah, that Cobble B execute they had was pretty cool to watch as well. That was a sick strategy. If they don't get out of groups,
do they make a roster change?
Yeah.
Do they
So-
make a change finally?
I've got a sexy question for you, okay? This is
Can
the
you-
real one. Because
All
the
right.
problem is, right, the most boring question you could ever have is which Polish player should they recruit? None. That's the reason why I even agree with Virtus.pro that they didn't make a roster over all these years. Because there is no Oscar or Nico out there in the Polish scene who's like so good that you have to recruit this guy. Look how well he plays, and look, even with a shit team he plays well. No, they actually are famous in those teams for even the really good player. If his team does badly, just looks shit. So actually, I get it. There's not really a player who's like a must hire. You know, it's not like when Navi started to go downhill and they were like, right, time to give Simple a try. Like there's no player like that. So here's the sexy question. It's one that Pocket actually came up with. It's a good one, which is if you're Virtus.pro, what if / why don't you just get an international player? That's an interesting one, right?
I cannot see VP players communicating in English and Counter-Strike. They all speak fine English, but
Why
I
would
can't
you
see
need
them
to?
doing it. I can't see them doing it in game.
Why do you need to though? You four just
Are you
talking
asking
Polish.
me why you need to communicate in a Counter-Strike match?
No, what I'm saying is, if 4 players in their team communicate in Polish and do all the brilliant shit they're doing now, but you have one player who's just way more skilled than one of your players you've got currently, I think that's actually a better team.
Nah.
Depends on the player, I guess.
Like, are you ready, Moses? I'll go deeper for you. Are you ready? Let's say the CIS shuffle happens. Guardian's from Slovakia. Let's say Guardian joins Virtus.pro.
Yeah, okay. That was the one.
How you like me
exception.
now? How you like me now?
I could see that working because Guardian, he likes to make things work.
And he likes getting paid 25 grand a month.
Everybody likes getting paid 25 grand a month.
Fuck, who do I have to blow to get
Wow.
paid 25 grand a month? Jason?
Russians.
Oh, okay.
Guardian, huh?
That's
I don't
also, by the
know.
way, let's just say
Even
that as
then.
well. We said this on Put Up Our Shot, but let's just put that out there as well, by the way. The only way anyone's going from Virtus.pro is they're getting kicked. No one's retiring from 25 grand a month,
Yeah.
where they even tell you, by the way, I don't mind if you do shit in online play.
No,
no
I
one's
could-
retiring from that in any world or shape or form.
I could see him doing it if they get knocked out. Like, here's the thing: VP, if they get knocked out of Legend status, is like they're not getting back. Like, can you imagine this Virtus.pro team having to compete through all of the online matches to qualify for the minor, to qualify for the qualifier, to qualify for the major? They aren't going through that process and making it out. Like, this is a team that just probably never gets back to the majors, if I'm honest. And I could see someone retiring from that team.
Like, if I'm Bialy at this point in time, if they tell me, like, you know, you're not doing very well, do you want to retire? I'd say, like, no, I promise, coach, next week will be better. And then I would just actually pay Xantares like 5k to come over and just play for that week and just wreck everyone online. And then be like, see, coach, I feel like I've picked it up again. I've got my motivation back. It's like, see you at the LAN. And then I'll just go to the LAN and fail again. So. I mean, I haven't seen a team get paid this much without any kind of need for results since fucking NRG in the heyday.
That's fair. That's
Shout
fair play.
out to the absolute human trash who attempt to pass themselves off as competent, sentient beings in the NRG management.
Who was advising them?
They won't kill me,
What I want
Jason.
to know.
They won't kill me.
Yeah, they won't kill you.
They bungled it up anyway.
Yeah, they'd fuck it up. Yeah, they'd run in and they'd try and shoot me. They'd shoot one of their own guys, and then they'd have to retreat from there.
I don't know who is advising them. That's a good question. It wasn't me. I'll tell you that right now.
It's never us.
I tried. I offered my services.
I believe it was. Wasn't it Yanko? Wasn't he giving them like a lot of tips on who to pick up and stuff? It was him, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
The guy
Yanko
wasn't
was
here
probably.
now.
Yeah, it was definitely Yanko.
Yeah.
Yanko said Peter is probably the best opera in North America.
I think he even said, and you can quote me on this, I think he actually said, if this lineup doesn't work and win Copenhagen Games, then fuck my home country of Croatia. I believe he did say that, right? He did. Yeah. You know what's mad about that episode? By the way, if you want to learn about Yanko, watch the interview that Richard just did with him. But I will warn you, the first 30 minutes is purely about the 90s and the political situation.
Haven't heard enough about that.
But that's actually really interesting, believe it or not, Moses, because a lot of us haven't looked into that stuff because we just heard it on the news back then, and they're obviously back then we didn't know that the news was fake. And so, we didn't know that. I used to think that was the news. I didn't know it was fake.
You
I
want
didn't
to
know
hear
George
some
Soros sponsored the news.
absolute, like, this is some real banter. Is when I went to visit Yanko in Belgrade, and
he tells this story. You were in the nightclub, right? And he tells you, listen, Jason, if you fuck around, I'm going to throw you into
He
this
did
crowd
say,
and say that
this guy loves Bill Clinton. This guy loves Bill Clinton. Yeah, that was good. But no, I landed on like the 20-year anniversary of like the day the bombing began in his country, and I was just like, I landed and I get that message as soon as I get into the airport, and I'm like, should I just turn around and hop on a plane? Like, am I cool? Is everything gonna be good? But no, he showed me around the whole city and where some of the bombs and everything hit, and like, you know, all the hideouts, all the crazy stuff. Surreal. Okay. Off that depressing note, let's talk about.
I've got a question for you. Okay, so if we look at the teams that are left, that's actually worth talking about. We actually haven't really talked about G2.
No,
so okay, Chad, you were on this ride with me. You saw the potential of G2. By the way, we were totally justified. They did indeed win EPL and beat SK and all that good stuff. So anyone who said otherwise is a turncoat, a traitor, and absolutely a bitch. Basically a bitch. By the way, just as an aside, did anyone see that thing where Conor McGregor just called that like Showtime executive a bitch to his face? Dude, that guy's paying for that event to be put on, and he's paying Conor McGregor like the 300 million or whatever. Like, just literally called him a bitch. You can't even recover from that. He's just like straight up got murked. Anyway, so back to the fact that Jason's very much like that Showtime executive. So Chad, come on, break it down for me. G2, where are they at? Why they so
I don't know what to say about their loss to Na'Vi, right? Like that was completely out of left field.
Simple was a bit godlike in that series, to be fair.
Yeah, but it's like it's just I don't know. It's really hard to put my finger on it because Apex was playing good Counter-Strike, and he's the guy who we've all been looking at, you know, since this team has been coming up, but he hasn't been very consistent. Yeah. And sure, as an entry fragger, you don't expect that. It's harder to find your kills, especially in a more rigid environment. But like the way that Kenny was playing, he was fucking going nuts. My biggest question mark for them is Shox and how he just hasn't been able to really integrate himself into the team. I think, like, I've got my top four written down here as obviously the big four, right? SK, Astralis, G2, and FaZe. I think that, like, the fact these guys are going to come in with a different level of fired up than what we've seen at the last few events for them, for sure. But for G2, it's like, why do they have a thing where they can't play early, they can't play late? Like, what kind of mental retardation is that where they're just physically... No, but seriously, you're playing fucking Counter-Strike. Why does it matter? Like that,
just Goldilocks syndrome, isn't it? Like, it's a little bit too hot. Oh, it's a bit too cold. They're out there with their blonde pigtails and everyone wants to fuck them.
I just can't.
Fictional character, Moses. You can say that. It's a fictional character. It doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Never existed.
They have that hybrid meta going for them as well. They've got the structure. They've got really good CT players. They have. They're really good at force buying. They can play fast. They can play.
Some would say too good, but you know, yeah, they are very good at force buying. I agree.
Well, right, like they enjoy doing it from time to time. I just think that there's something they need to work out how to activate Shox if this team wants to win this event, and I'm not sure if they would have been able to fix that in their time off.
Stuchiu, G2.
Yeah, I agree about the Shox point. As a player, basically right now what he's giving you like impact rounds, I guess. Like he'll every once in a while he'll like randomly win a clutch for you and you're like, yeah, that's great. But when I was going into this G2 team, when I first formed, I was thinking in my head, okay, Kenny S, you're gonna be the superstar. Shox, you're gonna be like the second player everybody plays around. But the way this is built currently, it feels like Shox is taking like, I don't know, like a 5 role or 6 role. It basically is like he's trying to delegate the others to like activate them. And yeah, there's a bunch of good players on that team. I feel like Shox is still better than the other 3, except for like Kenny S. And I feel like it's too late now, but I feel like they should have restructured it so that he's actually the second star of the team, and I play more around him. Or Kenny S. Like,
problem is though, that's exactly the thing. I'm pretty sure that he just got traumatized by last year, where it's like, you know, he played the max to his style and it didn't win that much, and so then people get that mad thing like Nico at the end of last year, where they're like, oh, maybe everyone's right, maybe I am supposed to be less selfish and all these like buzzwords that's not really the problem, you know. Whereas in this team, dude, if you were actually banging it in this team with Kenny S, well, yeah, you have got the team around you to support you.
Yeah, so that's like my entire problem. Basically, is they're not actualizing his potential, which is if you get Shox at like maximum power, like I think they'd be within the top 3, whereas like in the current status they're a dark horse, they're like the 4th, but as like the 4th best team, they have a lot of like teams under them that have like a chance to take them out. Navi could take them out. We saw that. Fnatic maybe even Cloud9 on a really great day.
I just think we're at the point now where I think we almost have to accept that at the moment, Shox doesn't want to be that player, right? Especially if he's going to be the guy going for that double op setup. They seem to really love that. And I don't think it's a matter of activating Shox. I think it's a matter of Shox activating himself, right? Like he's the in-game leader. If he wants to be the second star, he should be putting himself in those positions. He should stop opping. He should get back to the AK-47s and the ability to be dynamic, the ability to be aggressive and passive when the situation calls for it, and use some of that game sense. But it's got to be something at the moment where I imagine like he would not be a person on this team that I would say be the in-game leader, but it's got to be a situation where the other players, and I feel like they don't talk about it as much, where I mean no one probably wants to in-game lead, and Shox just kind of takes it upon himself. Maybe he does want to in-game lead, but I don't want him as an in-game leader. I think that's the big thing.
Like, here's the problem. I can tell you from knowing those players, like, if you break that team down, it goes like this, right? In no universe is Kenny S going to be the in-game leader. He doesn't have a mind at all like that for the game. He really is the AWPer that's like, I'm going to kill things that come in my crosshair. That's how Kenny S thinks about the game. Apex is the entry fragger and is a soldier. He's a yes man. He says yes to whatever the in-game leader says. So he doesn't have the initiative to be the in-game leader. So there's 2 of your teams gone already. So we've only got 3 players left, and we're saying Shock shouldn't be it. So it's basically between NBK and Body. NBK has multiple times tried to be the in-game leader, but he is the ultimate example of the guy who's like, let me do that, and then he does it for a week, and he's like, oh, this is actually shit, I don't want to do that anymore. And then Body's just a brand new player. So putting Body as in-game leader would be like a ridiculous gamble at this point in time, because he's just so young, and he's playing well, so why would you ruin that? So I feel like, unfortunately, they're also using the logic that, because last year, like, Happy went to shit, Existence was in LDLC, the only in-game leader that was vaguely viable was Shox. And so I feel like there's no options for them. You know, I agree. Put it this way, if I could do this, obviously you'd have to wave a magic wand because there's a lot to change here. If NBK could be the in-game leader, and that would mean Shox played as fully as a star player, I'd say do that tomorrow. But unfortunately, again, I don't think that people in the team would go along with that.
No, probably not. And honestly, I don't even know. The only way I'd want NBK as the in-game leader is if we were guaranteed we'd get like the old Shox back, right? Yeah. Like if it's not worth it if Shox still isn't going to be that all-star, especially because you have to feel for NBK in every single lineup of these French teams they've put together. He's always the one like taking, you know, he's just like, you know what, I'll just give up everything. I'll be the support player. I'll be the bomb site anchor. Whatever makes the teammates comfortable. I think it would just fucking be a kick in the dick at this point if they were like, yeah, now you have to in-game lead as well.
That's the problem, though. Here's the thing. From knowing a lot of the French players, like, actually, aside from some of the Nordic players, I think the French scene's the one that I know the most and have talked to all the players the most, like, over history. And I have to say, like, unless you are with Existence, the other French players, including Happy, have the most ridiculous results-orientated way of thinking about Counter-Strike I have ever seen. Like, I've seen the single players do this. Like, usually the star player thinks that way. You know, he thinks to himself, right, well, I lost that round just because I didn't hit that shot on Cat when I walked up. Because he's so good, maybe he could do that each time, you know. Maybe for him, he really should have got those 2 kills. But they're like these teams where it isn't Existence in them, they have like 1 to 5 thinks that way. And so, for example, if we were to bring up a point now, like, let's make it a hypothetical, like, oh, they're picking this map too much, or, you know, they're force spying in this situation too much, they will never agree with that concept. You know, they will just say, no, you don't understand, like, you know, in practice that map was working, and actually, you know, we just didn't get the 3rd round, and so our economy was limited, so we never really got to do what we wanted to. They will always go like with this, it'll always be based on a kill or a round, and that is, they can argue from that, like, they can reverse engineer away every loss they have. And that's the reason why last year when they had like the Envious lineup, they were absolutely stuck in hell, because they were just like all doing that, and it didn't matter that nothing worked in the team. No one was playing well. The metagame was fucked. They had no map pool. They just kept doing that logic like every game. And so, like, it's so bizarre, because I really feel like you can have players like that in the team, but I don't know if you can have 5 players like that if you're trying to be the best. Because think about the other teams you're playing. Like, SK and Astralis are adapting all day to things you do. They're not just like being arrogant as fuck like that. And meanwhile, like, FaZe, I mean, maybe to a degree they do it a little bit, but they still got Carrigan, you know. Also, their players are just very good as well. So I don't think you can. I think there's an obvious reason why G2's not in the top 3.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I think actually outside of the top 3 in Counter-Strike out of the Astralis, FaZe, SK, I feel like everything after that is pretty much like up in the air at this point. Like, I really do think that those teams can shuffle around and all beat each other quite a bit.
Here's the last topic then before we end. So, right, if we go ahead and say that the favourites for the tournament are SK, Astralis, FaZe, and then just so that everyone can't pick G2, we'll take G2 out of it. So we'll say that when I ask you who your dark horse is for the tournament, it can't be those 4 teams. It can be anyone else other than those 4 teams. Stuchiu, who is your dark horse for ESL 1 Cloud?
Is it to win the entire event?
No one else is going to win aside from those 4
deep,
teams.
right?
Just to go deep. Like, make semis, let's say. Who else could make semis? Pick one team.
One team, I'd pick Mouse.
Okay, why?
I think Oscar's verging on like top 10 status. I think he's a superstar. The only problem I have with Mouse is like you said, everybody's new at this level, but I think they have the map pool. I think they have the system-ish. They have the superstar. They have enough that as long as they don't draw the top 3, they have a chance.
Okay. Right, Sponge, who are you going to go with?
Fnatic, I think JW's been playing really well lately. They definitely have a better approach on the game. I think mentally they've been humbled, which means to me they're going to come out really hungry for this event. And they have players who have all played on this level before. So they come against any like underdog, like teams here, like Immortals. You got your Mousers. You come against any of those kind of boys. Obviously, the shit teams we were talking about before, they're just going to have the mental edge over them and run all over them. So, yeah.
Come on, Moses. You know you want to say it.
Cloud9.
Vegas Squadron, motherfuckers. Just now.
Yeah.
No, I would actually. I mean, I'm not going to say Virtus Pro because I think that'd be a little bit unfair, but that is a pretty good shout. I would go with Navi as a team that I could actually do it.
Okay. Yeah.
Considering they're looking much better, and then also, I mean, they just have players. If Guardian plays the way he did in Cologne, I think they're not a lock, but like pretty great shot at getting to the semifinals. And then you factor in Simple. You have all the players who've done it before. You have all the players you can just individually dominate series. Flamey, if for some reason he goes off, and then on top of that, I think Andy's done a pretty good job at providing this team with some variety and some aggression on the CT side that can be tough for teams, especially when their oppers are kind of clued in. And also, to be fair, probably one of the most dangerous double up setups we have in the game at the moment. So a lot of reasons why Navi can have success that I think it's been hard to pinpoint the reason why they aren't having as much success as they should.
Okay. All good picks. I mean, I actually think, like, I told you the reasons why I thought Mouse could do it, but I would actually go with Chad. I'd say Fnatic. Like, I do think that will be a factor. Like, here's the thing. As much as Fnatic has a lot of problems, I feel like where they're at right now, their ideal position right now is kind of like what NiP did last year, where it's like, all those times NiP beat Astralis, where like Astralis would be winning the game and it'd be the third map, but NiP always was the team like, well, we don't break under pressure, we'll just wait for you. That's what I think Fnatic can do here. And so really, yeah, they're not going to like beat FaZe in a best of 3 and then go to the final, but if they get like a Mouse Sports or a fucking Gambit or an Immortals in the first round, that's exactly their edge right there. That's where for sure they could do it, I think.
Wait, let's make this the last thing, Duncan. Why don't we just pick our 8 teams we think are going to get out of the group stage?
Okay, go ahead.
Fuck's sake.
Ruined Chad's evening.
Go away, mate.
All right, I just have the HLTV thing written down, so I'll just go top to bottom. Astralis, Cloud9, FaZe, G2, Mouse Sports, Navi, SK, VP.
Okay.
So I have teams like Fnatic's not getting out, North not getting out, Gambit not getting out.
Okay. All right, Sponge, who are you going to take?
Astralis, SK, FaZe, G2, Fnatic, C9, VP, and Mouse.
Bold. Okay. Who do you want, Stuchiu?
Astralis, SK, FaZe, G2, North, Mouse,
Oh,
Fnatic. Is that
You've got
8?
one more to go, haven't you?
yeah.
I think you said Navi. Did you?
I'll go with Gambit.
Oh,
Okay.
Spicy man.
Let me see. See, mine's actually very similar to Stuchiu's there. Like, I'll take Astralis, FaZe, SK, G2, North, Fnatic. Let me see, that's 6. So I've got 2 to go. Fnatic, let's see. What else have we got here? I'll take Mouse and Navi. Yeah, that'll be my 8. Right, that's the end of the episode.
God bless.
Hello, I'm male feminist Anders Bloom, and because all lives matter here at Thorin's channel, I give you a big welcome.